Hi and good evening and welcome to our webinar. So we'll be with you for an hour, which is great. Celynn and I will both be talking. You might see on your screen that it right now says on the control panel that Celynn is talking, but those of you that I know, you know it's Joni speaking. So let's just chat about a few things. The first thing is that you are all on mute. So you won't be able to chat to us until the question and answer session. So we'll have that right at the end. We're pretty good at managing time, so we won't be running over time. And then secondly, what we want to speak about is the fact that we would love you to ask questions and we would also love you to take action. So at the end, we are going to be challenging you to put your action up in the question section, I should say, that's on the right-hand side in your panel. So if you click on the little arrow next to the left-hand side of the word question, you'll be able to type in your questions and we'll be able to see those. And then we are going to challenge you to take up a few little behavior shifts using these 10 points for a healthier career. So we'll be recording the webinar and we'll make that available to your mates who can't attend perhaps today. And then we'll be giving out a few prizes.
So hi there, I'm Celynn, and it's great to have you join us. And we appreciate that you've spent the entire day really busy in your head doing whatever it is that you got done today. But here you are in front of your computer or laptop. Maybe you're viewing this webinar off your phone. And we just want to acknowledge that you're here now and you've really invested the time and made energy to be here. We know that it's really easy to get distracted. I know that when I'm just watching a webinar, I can find myself tempted to answer a few emails, and then I could just miss nuggets of information. So what we recommend is if you have a pen and paper handy, maybe jot down a few notes, because at the end, we're actually going to ask you for some input. And then we've got some prizes to give away, and Joni is our official judge, and her decision is final. And halfway through, we're going to get you to do an activation with us so that we don't just keep you sitting. But in the meantime, while you're sitting, I'd like you to take yourself out of your head and focus on the other end of your body. So think about your toes. In fact, now is a great time to kick off your shoes. So if you've still got your shoes on, kick them off, place your feet on the ground, and really feel grounded. So when we spend a lot of time in our heads, we tend to forget that we actually have a body, and all we do is stay in that fight or flight response. And that's why we're talking about this topic today. So make sure that you can feel the ground supporting your feet. Be aware of where you're sitting so you can feel your buttocks, the back of your legs, maybe even your back leaning against a chair, and be present in the moment and take some long, deep breaths. We're going to share a really funky breathing technique with you later, but don't stop breathing until then. Take deep breaths now so that you can really be present. And over to Joni.
So many of us are running businesses or running busy lives with kids and activities and hobbies. And we find that most people we deal with face a number of challenges, but we've highlighted 3 tonight. I bet you can relate to being time poor. Can you get through everything you need to get to in a day, in a week, in your month? And certainly stress rich. So if you're feeling like this, like the guy who's got his head in the filing cabinet, or perhaps you're just feeling fatigued and you're thinking, my goodness, I really wish I had a bit more energy. That's what tonight is all about. Secondly, if you're thinking about your own behavior and your patterns, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, how you can shift. We know that you are born a personality type, and I'll speak a bit more about that at the end of the webinar. And we know that we don't change and shift our behaviors very easily. But these techniques tonight are incredibly practical. Celynn and I often use the term simplicity on the far side of complexity. So they are science-backed and they are enablers to you to weave into everyday life. You certainly are not going to shift and change radically, but when you adopt these tiny habits, you will find significant change in energy levels and also looking at a healthier career. These are things we should be weaving into our weeks and our months, and they're not an add-on to your to-do list. The third challenge we often speak about is this decision fatigue. So we are bombarded by, should we eat that? Shouldn't we eat this? Banting. Should we be working so many hours? Should we exercise 5 days a week, 7 days a week? For how long? How do we handle conflict? Isn't it good to have robust discussions? So there are a lot of conflicting views and people get simply overwhelmed by those. Like, what should I be doing? And in fact, then we just like a rabbit in the headlights. and we do absolutely nothing. So if you're in that space where you are sick of hearing conflicting views and you want clear, succinct enablers, that's what tonight is all about. So energy management is the new stress management. Celynn and I were chatting today. I spoke to a guy who runs a thriving business. He's 40 years old. He's making buckets of money and living to purpose. And he said, Joni, I think I'm ADHD and I'm just getting more and more energy as I go. But in fact, if you know how to manage your energy, you will have the ability to be more purposeful and live a meaningful life. So let's kickstart these 10 ideas, the 10 ideas to a healthier career. So the first one, Celynn will speak about.
So the first one is not the first one for nothing. It possibly is one of the most important. And if this is something that you're struggling with, if there's one thing you leave with tonight, it could potentially be this. We know that sleep is the key to success, not just in our personal lives, but certainly in our work life. And why is that? Well, for two big reasons. When we don't get enough sleep, and not getting enough sleep is not getting about 7 hours of sleep a night. So on average, the research is saying we need 7 to 9 hours. And certainly if you're getting less than 6 hours of sleep, you possibly are not having the benefits in terms of your brain. We know that when we sleep enough, we smarten up. So that's when our synapses in our brain and our neurons strengthen, just like when we exercise and do sports. It's actually on the recovery rest days that those strengthened or used muscles build their strength. And then also when we sleep, we allow our bodies to reduce cortisol, the stress hormone, and it helps us to lose weight. So we know when we don't get enough sleep, we are hungrier, we crave more sugar, and that's because of a hormone called ghrelin that increases when we don't get enough rest. So what do? A lot of us are not getting enough sleep. And we have 2 tips to help you and a third one to help ensure that you can fall asleep a lot easier. The first tip is to bring in power napping if this is a skill that is not in your toolbox. I must say that I am still not quite getting this right. Joni is a power napper. She has a 12-minute cycle and she can easily drop into it, but that's because of years of practice. One way to help is just to allow yourself the ability to relax, even if it is just for 10 minutes. And that can slowly become an easier way to power nap. But if you can't power nap, or if this is not something that you're able to fit into your day, or maybe it doesn't grab you, or you're thinking, gee, I can't do that, something all of us can do is to take power breaks. One of the best power breaks that we've ever experienced ourselves and shared with others is an exercise where you put your feet up against a wall and lie there. If you can for 10 minutes, great. If you can do it for 15 minutes, even better. If you can manage to do this for 20 minutes at the end of a day, it'll feel like you've had an extra 2 hours of sleep. We actually go through this technique, so how to get it right, in one of the sections in the Activate module of our book. So if you're interested in getting more detail, then be sure to take a look at this. It's incredibly good if you've been on your feet all day or spent a lot of time sitting. It's one way to reverse circulation and to help your body and your muscles and your brain relax. And then the technique to help you fall asleep easy at night is to make sure that for an hour before you go to rest or to sleep is to try and have a digital detox. What that means is no screen time right before you hit the pillow. A lot of us are kissing our cell phones or our iPads goodnight. We're checking up on Facebook and LinkedIn and reading articles when actually that's one of the worst things you could do. Not only does the light stimulate certain chemicals in your brain and reduce levels of melatonin, and melatonin helps you to sleep, but also you could read a message that could upset you or excite you, and that's the complete opposite of what you're trying to achieve when we're wanting to wind down. So I know that Joni has a rule in her home where none of the girls are allowed digital devices in their rooms, and she does the same. So maybe this is something you could try. It's just to have a detox, a digital detox, an hour before you sleep. Then the second point in terms of busting stress to help you get a healthier career is not just about rest, but it's about looking at how you fuel yourself. And Joni and I certainly walk to this message. We snack for stamina. Why is this important? Well, we know just like we need fuel in our vehicles, we need fuel to function. But more than this, I don't think many of us pay particular attention to how our fueling choices can impact this 2 kilogram universe that sits on top of our shoulders, and what ultimately determines our ability to succeed in our careers. So what we generally find is this scenario. We see that a lot of people wake up and they skip breakfast, or they grab whatever they can. We have back-to-back meetings, so we have back-to-back cups of coffee. If we skip lunch, we look for a snack in the afternoon. And then by the time we get home in the evenings and we finally relax, this is when we generally have our biggest meal of the day. And we haven't put into the screenshot the wine that comes before and perhaps the chocolate or biscuits that come afterwards. And I'm not sure if you can resonate with aspects of this, but certainly a lot of people that we work with are finding that this is quite a common pattern. So what? So what if you're eating like this? Well, if we're looking at minimizing stress and maximizing our ability to perform at work and have a healthy career, we can't function without fuel. And our source of fuel is our blood glucose. And if you're following a similar pattern to this in terms of feeding yourself, your source of energy, your glucose, will roller coaster throughout the day. So you'll have periods of time where it drops, periods of time where it peaks, and the biggest concern is the variations in between, because if we want to perform at our best, physically, mentally, and emotionally, we need to try and stabilize our blood glucose levels and keep it quite constant throughout the day. When your blood glucose drops, what happens is the area in your brain that we refer to simplistically as your lizard hijacks your wizard. So we know that the part of the brain that gets triggered by the stress response can also get triggered when you have a drop in blood sugar. So you skip breakfast tomorrow morning and you have 2 cups of coffee. I promise you by 11 o'clock, your lizard is hijacking your wizard. Your wizard sits in the front of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. And that's the part of the brain that we need to be able to focus, to problem solve, to think creatively, or just to have a general sense of humor and be able to remember things. So very important to consider what's happening. So if you're resonating with this and you're thinking that maybe your lizard is taking over your wizard, what can you do? The one thing that you can do in order to sustain your energy physically, emotionally, and mentally is to snack smart. What is a smart snack? Basically, the ideal smart snack would be a protein and a fiber. I'm going to give you a few ideas of what a protein would look like. We also get protein and healthy fats from certain foods like nuts and seeds, from nut butters like almond butter, from dips like hummus, from protein sources like dairy, cheese, eggs, avocado, perhaps a good quality protein powder, maybe some biltong. That's what Joni and I had this afternoon just before the webinar. But ideally, you don't just want to snack on protein. You always want to combine a small portion of protein with some fiber. Fiber you would find in fresh or dried fruit. Small portions of dried fruits are very convenient when you're traveling. And even though they're concentrated fruit sugar, if you keep the portion controlled, they're really a powerful snack. You could also use things like seed crackers, and then of course all your crudités. So if you'd like more ideas, we've got a Friday foodie recipe, and we'll share the details with you on how to get that at the end of the webinar. There's also a lot of information in our book. So the key is to plan the right snacks. So you want to shop once a month and get the right snacks in the right environment. You want to drop them into your desk drawer, your laptop bag, your car, so that you've got them on the afternoons or the mornings that you need them. And then, of course, you've got to remember just to stop and have a snack. A snack should be a little bit of protein with some fiber. And if you would like some recipes or some more information on how to snack for stamina, you can find that in section 2 of our book. I'm going to hand over to Joni, who will take us into the third technique.
Thanks, Celynn. And the hardy-dars were flying over as you were speaking, so they've been snacking all day. Engage a business mentor. And why do we want to do that? We really, in our busy times and working long hours, is we need to elevate, get to that helicopter view and get perspective. So I've certainly seen in the teams that we work with is that people are stressed by people problems, interpersonal skills, conflict, too many tasks, changing strategies, mergers, acquisitions, retrenchments, lack of resources. So often we're fighting these fires on a daily, hourly basis. But when you get to speak to a mentor can ask you those provocative questions to really kind of distance yourself, and you get definitely a better perspective and a better handle on what you're doing. Many people say, hey, Joni, how do I choose a business mentor? Now, this is not a coach where you've got to engage in a long-term process and pay them. People love to be mentors. So I must say, I actually spoke to my mentor today. I've had him, oh my goodness, I think for about 15 years. He was a chairman of the JSC, and we still chat. He's retired now, but he certainly asks me questions that stop me in my tracks. And how did I get to find him? I was in a meeting with him one day, and I just said to him, look, Jeff, would you be my mentor? So people will be honored by you asking them to be your mentor. And I have a few business mentors. I have one entrepreneur who's wild and wacky and will give me lateral thoughts about trends and different ways of thinking. And then I've certainly got elderly guys who are very steeped in corporate governance and what I should be doing from that perspective. So it's about using your initiative to go and ask, and you'll really be surprised by the reception that you get to this invite to be your mentor. Set up those meetings, buy them coffee. It can be a 20-minute coffee session. This shouldn't be another onerous thing on your to-do list. It should be short, quick, and just by you explaining the current issue of the day, the week, the month, the quarter, you will very quickly maybe even answer your own issues by articulating your problem. So that's another idea for a healthier business career and busting a bit of your daily stress. Then if we look at activate, it has come to the time now where I might ask you to do a little bit of activation. Why? Because sitting is the new smoking. So we do need to look at how we activate our bodies. This is not talking about an hour's run in the morning or an hour's gym in the afternoon or a paddle or a cycle or adding again to the onerous things you have to do during the day. This is just saying, how do I incorporate that into my very day? So beware of the chairs. You can see on the screen, we have a section in our book called Sitting is the New Smoking. I'll speak about that a little more. But let's activate for now. So that's Celynn and I were at a function. And even if you just stood up, and I'm not going to do it now because the webcam won't get me in, but you can see me there standing with my arms up, that will elevate your testosterone. Yep, we all have testosterone, even us gals, and it will decrease your cortisol. So let's just imagine the scene. You're in a business meeting, it's going south, and things are not turning out the way they should be. The deliverables are not on time, you're over budget. We all know those scenarios. Go to the loo, stand in the cubicle, and just simply stand like that for 2.5 minutes. If you want to know the science behind this, Google Amy Cuddy, Cuddy, and listen to her 20-minute TED Talk on power poses. So we need to activate. That does help bust stress in the workplace. And Celynn and I actually are working on a system called micro bursts of activity, because we do know that it absolutely changes the brain. Have a look at that brain on the left, a brain after sitting quietly, and then on the right-hand side, a brain after a 20-minute walk. So simply walking briskly between your meetings will highlight the brain and get those synapses to work more effectively for you so that you can think laterally and perhaps be more collaborative. So think about how you can incorporate this into your day so that you do get fresh oxygenated blood to your brain during your day as opposed to before your workday starts or at the end of your workday. Fabagize your meetings is a concept that we are selling into corporate teams where we actually plan agendas for them, from Manco meeting, an Exco meeting, or just a general get-together. And how can you have a little Fabagizer or a micro burst of activity for a minute every hour? And how do you do this in a seamless, fun way? You're not going to get your colleagues to have these yoga postures, but you are going to have a whole lot of fun. And there are some meetings where Celynn and I are there for 2 or 3 hours. We get people to move every 20 minutes, and it's seamless if it's a 30-second micro burst. Micro is the input, and burst is your return on that time investment. So I could beat this drum for a long time, because if you start to utilize this to bust stress, you are not going to reach for that horrendous chocolate in the afternoon. Don't let Celynn hear me tell you that. Right, so connect and collaborate is another one of the 10 ideas for busting stress. And that is the simple, heartfelt manner of the fact that we benefit from really collaborating with others. And true collaboration comes when you put your ego and status aside and you start to actively listen, actively hear what people have to say. How can you incorporate that into your current knowledge? And how can you benefit from what we call in FAB the emergence effect? That means 1 plus 1 plus 1 is not 3. It's far, far bigger than 3. So when you can connect in a way that connects cognitively in a heartfelt manner and tap into your intuition, so you're present, you're mindful, and you're really understanding different perspectives, you should get a much better result. And I know this sounds a bit like apple pie and motherhood, but it's not. It's something that we are in a busy world. We are not being that present and mindful in meetings, and we should be. We should be saying, actually, that person, I would never do what they've just done. I'd never say what they just said. They're aggressive, they're dogmatic, they seem to be bullying this meeting. But if you put that judgment aside and think, okay, that tenacity, that dynamism, that vision that they come with, maybe they're going to take us, and leapfrog us past these stumbling blocks. And maybe they have got something of worth to say. So put aside your own ego and your judgment and learn how to really benefit from the emergence effect. Right, so kick the sugar habit, Celynn.
So I'm really passionate about this one, and thanks to all the debate that's been going on, certainly here in South Africa with the banting and the meal revolution, there's been a huge focus on just how bad sugar can be and how sneaky it is. Because in the past, we would think about sugar in terms of the white granules that we added to our tea and coffee or that we potentially baked with. We didn't think that sugar was actually in the boardroom or in our desk drawer or in the sauces that we added to meals or in the jam or in the healthy low-fat foods that we were adding to our new diet. So what is it about sugar? There's a lot we can talk about. We're not going to make this a diet talk. What Joni and I wanted to highlight is we aren't often purists. We're very balanced. We believe strongly in the 80-20 principle, certainly when it comes to the way that you eat. So if 80% of the time you do things right and you follow the best guidelines for you as an individual, then 20% of the time when you don't, it's still okay. But I don't think 80-20 works when it comes to sugar. And in fact, Joni and I, the more we hear from people, we get stories every day about this, we've tried this out ourselves, is that in the past we would say, oh, you have 3 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee, why don't you try reduce that to 2 and then to 1? But that actually doesn't work. We really think that with this you need to go cold turkey. So if we're looking at the workplace, where is sugar appearing in places where it isn't serving us in terms of our productivity? Well, if we think about boardroom biscuits, if we think about what is drunk in the office environment, a lot of us are drinking high sugar beverages. And that's not just the canned sugared cold drinks. It's also the vitamin type enriched waters. It's fruit juice. Every conference and event and meeting we go to, there's often no water. There's lots of tea, there's lots of coffee, and there's often fruit juice. And those kind of beverages are just filled with sugar. So thinking about how you can detox your work environment, even if it starts with just your desk, is a great way to start. It's not cool to have a bowl of sweeties on your desk so that colleagues, when they walk past, can grab one. I think we've moved beyond those. We understand that sugar does not serve us. It certainly doesn't serve our brain, and it doesn't serve our waistline either. So what helps is to also read labels, because sugar hides in really sneaky, interesting places. And there's a lot of information on a label. There's new food legislation in South Africa that's come into force this year, last month, so we can generally believe what's on a label. We don't want you to get fussed in with all the detail. It's a really good thing to look at the list of ingredients. That gives you some great insight into the quality of the food that you're eating, because often the front packaging can make out for a food to be really healthy. One example I often use in my work in the UK are these strawberry yogurt-coated flakes that are incredibly popular in many lunchboxes and for snacks as many individuals that work. But when you look at those strawberry yogurt-coated flakes and you look at the list of ingredients, there are 16 listed ingredients, none of which contain strawberry, and sugar is listed in about 5 of them in different forms. And you would never know that unless you read the fine print. So look at the list of ingredients, and if sugar pops up as one of the top few ingredients, maybe that's not a snack or a food that you should be including in your diet regularly. Another way to look at an item and to assess how much sugar is in it is to look at the nutrient table, and that's where you'll see the kilojoules, the calories, the protein, and you'll always see carbohydrates, of which are sugars. And then take a look, there'll be the per 100 gram column. That's only useful if you are eating or drinking 100 grams or 100 milliliters. Take a look at the per serving. So let's say you're looking at a biscuit, and you look at how many grams of sugar are in the biscuit. And maybe a serving is 3 biscuits. That's reasonable. Most of us would probably have 3 biscuits if we were going to choose to have that with a cup of tea. And then you see there 24 grams of sugar. Well, what you do is you divide that by 4, and that will give you the teaspoons, because teaspoons of sugar are far more easy to conceptualize than 24 grams. So in this case, 24 grams divided by 4, let's see if my prefrontal cortex is working.
6.
Thank you, Joni. Would be 6 teaspoons of sugar. 6 teaspoons of sugar is not okay. So you may think 3 biscuits are okay, but actually no. And when you start looking at the grams of sugar and the teaspoons of sugar in the cold drinks and fruit juices and flavored waters and iced teas and vitamin waters that so many of us are drinking on a daily basis, we will be appalled. We should not be consuming more than 6 teaspoons of sugar in a day, according to the World Health Organization, and many of us are having 6 teaspoons of sugar in a simple snack. So if that's something you'd like to do and take away from this webinar, is to read food labels specifically for sugar, that could be a very interesting exercise to undergo. Something else that you could consider doing is Joni and I watched the movie called That Sugar Film. I know that it was life-changing for Joni's daughters. In fact, they never listened to what the dietitian had to say. They didn't listen to what their mother had to say. But when they watched this movie, from that moment onwards, everybody was reading labels. There were special snacks for exams. There was sugar-free baking going on. And you know what? It's more than a year down the line, and those habits are still in place. Why? Because the movie touched emotions. It was very graphical, very descriptive, and it was a true story. There are quite a few movies out there, but if this is one that you start with, it's a must-see. It's available on Netflix and online, and don't just watch it on your own. Sit down and watch it with your family, and you may be quite surprised at how sugar could be sneaking into your lifestyle and how potentially you could make changes that will benefit you not just at home, but in the workplace as well. I'm going to hand back over to Joni, who's going to take us through mentors, not just for our business life, but also in our personal life.
So I'd just like to reiterate that that movie looks at healthy food, and that's what really struck me right here between the eyes, is that those healthy muesli breakfast with low-fat yogurt is just tons of sugar. So yes, Celynn, thank you. Right, let's look at our personal lives. We think about work and 10 stress-busting busters for a healthier career. But actually, if we're not managing our personal life, we'll certainly get to work in the mornings, kind of shuffling into our office and then really not being able to perform at our best. So it is imperative that we have a look at our personal life. And I'll just build on the exact same theme as your mentor that you seek out for work. Have a few in your personal life. So if I just speak from personal experience, and what Celynn and I do is that we have a financial mentor. So it's someone that guides us personally in our own private environments, that guides us with the Resilient Energy Center. And she gives us perspective on really how we can develop our business, but also look at our finances privately. So that's useful. I have a running mentor. I am running my 5th Comrades at 50. We'll be doing a campaign about that.
Cool?
Maybe I should say out loud that it's my final. Every year I say it's my final. It's got to be my final. But I have a running mentor. And in fact, I have a few running mentors because I run with a group of guys 6 days a week. And then I have another mentor as well, which is great. I have a parent mentor. So I found this fascinating, actually, because I was thinking about this more deeply yesterday. One of my great vast teammates from Pietermaritzburg, she was my parenting mentor when my kids were toddlers. And her kids are obviously also at university and high school. But she lives away from me now. I've got other parenting mentors. So I can phone and say, gee, I'm in a log jam here. Should I be doing this? Shouldn't I be doing that? And they give me perspective. I have got the very best food mentor in the world. So actually, maybe that's not. I want to add a serious note to that. So last year, I ran my best comrades, and this is not about extreme sports, and I don't advocate anyone to run comrades. It's a ridiculous distance, and it's not good for your body. It's not resilient energy center stuff. But I snacked for stamina. So I do not have a drop of Coke. I do not have one of those squeegee things full of maltodextrin. I don't even know what they're called. Goose. So Celynn taught me what to eat, and I luckily have Gavin who replenishes my little pouch 4 or 5 times along the way. But I snack for stamina, and I ended that race not in a great time because I'm not a time girl. 10.5 hours is just perfect for me. But I had energy, which is fantastic. And I've learned to also preempt that desire for food where I snack for stamina. And I know that if I don't have a snack in my daily life, let's talk about work again, is so that I don't have that big meal at night. I'll snack at 5 or 6 o'clock. As Celynn said, we had biltong earlier on, or a few nuts or a bit of dried fruit. So find yourself someone that you believe in, and you can tap into Rec for Celynn for sure. And then who else do I have as a mentor? I have a spiritual mentor as well. And I do have an Enneagram mentor. So someone who can help me look at my own personality and behavior trappings. So mentors are there, as we say, to educate you, to motivate you, and maybe to tease you out of your comfort zone into new experiences. So look at the dimensions in your life. So I've mentioned a few, and decide who do you know, like, and trust, and who will you phone repetitively for advice in that area of your life. Radio, networking. It's not nebulous. So this is something that I actually only learned later in my career, and I'm a little devastated by that because I could have built up stronger networks in my corporate life with Unilever or Bristol Myers Squibb, where I worked for quite a few years. And I just sort of burrowed down, and I was very task-orientated in marketing and sales and just trying to get my work done and get it done efficiently and meet deadlines, etc., and not investing time in networking. And we have learned this really beautifully from our friend and colleague, Helen Nicholson, who's written a book on networking, but initiating those little coffee meetings, initiating building your networks, and listening out to where you can connect others. So I was in a meeting yesterday with someone speaking about the Enneagram, fun enough, and he mentioned another business he's in, and I just thought about my old mentor, and I gave him a call today to say, hey, haven't chatted to you for a few weeks. What about you connecting with this person? So not only networking for self-benefit, but living the abundant life about how do you connect others. So networking is a two-way reciprocal process, and investing in those odd phone calls, those odd coffees, but thinking about other people's businesses. And I must say, when I really get involved in people's businesses, understand their pain, and I can send them an article or refer them to someone or say, hey, you might actually work well with this person. They seemingly are a competitor, but we're in the world of collaboration. Why don't you try that out? So it is the way of the world right now. People are much more abundant, much more collaborative. And if you're curious about building wide ranges of networks around you, you will most certainly benefit. So be proactive and get to doing it.
And on that note, the one thing I have learned from Joni is when you meet somebody that potentially you would like to add to your network or you could help, is the speed of responding is so important. So Joni is somebody I know, she'll meet somebody even at an evening function, and you can be sure that by the next morning, by 8 o'clock, she's connected with them. So sometimes it's just a thank you. You may not know somebody that could help them, but if there's somebody important that you've met, when you respond really quickly, it just reinforces that connection, and that's something I've learned from her. So the second last tip to help you reduce stress for a healthier career is an important one, because the workplace can be a battlefield, and no matter with the best intentions, you could start off your day with Pharrell Williams, the happy song in your head, and you could say, this is it, I'm going to have a beautiful day. Anything can go wrong. And something can trigger the stress response. And what do you do when you get hot under the collar? A lot of us have a knee-jerk type of reaction, which we often regret. And sometimes it's too late. The regret won't help fix a problem or take away words that were said out of anger or frustration. So a technique that we're going to share with you now can help you whenever you feel that you need to bite your tongue or hold back, or just give you that little window to help you think about a better response. And this is a technique you can take into your home. So those of you that have teenagers that you need to negotiate with, or just a difficult relationship or something that you need to manage better, this technique can help. So it's not an expensive technique. In fact, it's free. You don't have to remember to pack it into your handbag, ladies. You don't have to remember to put it into your briefcase. It is available to you right now, in fact. And at the start of the session, we asked you to be present, to wriggle your toes, as well as to become aware of your breath. And breathing is one of the most powerful techniques to help reduce the fight or flight response. When we are feeling stressed, one of the first things that we start doing is to take shallow breaths. We don't breathe deeply, and so we don't get enough oxygen, and we perpetuate that stressful feeling and can even trigger anxiety when we're not breathing correctly. So when you're in a difficult situation, when you want to manage your response, this particular breathing technique has science to back it up. Dr. Vale, Dr. McCullough speak about it, and it's the 4-7-8 breathing technique. Maybe you want to give this a try right now as we go through it. What you would do is it helps to sit upright, because it's really hard to breathe properly when we're slouching. So sit upright or stand upright if you're standing, and take a deep breath in where you fill your lungs, but not just into where your shoulders are. In fact, you want your shoulders to stay still, and you want the air to go right down into your belly, because your diaphragm, the bottom of your lungs, is right down at the bottom of your rib cage. So you want to breathe in for 4 counts, fill your lungs with air. If you're able to, and you may not be able to do this at first, but hold your breath for up to 7 counts. If you can only hold it for 4 counts, that's a great place to start. And then you want to exhale. Now, what you don't want to do is this. Exhale. You want to Why is that? Because your exhale should always be longer than your inhale. It makes sure that you get rid of all those toxins through the carbon dioxide. It increases lung capacity. And it's just like when us ladies sigh. That sighing, that exhale is where you release a lot of the tension. Try this tomorrow. If you're in a difficult situation, maybe you're just driving into the office or your first meeting and you get cut off or there's bad traffic. Try the 4-7-8 technique. Breathe in for 4, hold for 7, exhale for longer than it took you to inhale, and you'll feel that your anxiety levels will drop and that you can make a smarter decision on how to react. This technique, plus another 4 breathing techniques, we've got in our book. So those of you that have a copy, you're welcome to take a look then, and at the end of the webinar, we'll share with you how you can get your hands on a copy. Now we're on to our last point on how to reduce stress, and it's over to you.
You know that you are your most important asset, but it is quite hard to self-coach. So here are a few very practical techniques, and hand on heart, when I learned the Enneagram, it was life-changing for me. It was close on 19 years ago. It is powerful, it is simple and yet complex. It's 3-dimensional, and you don't have to go there. It's 2,500 years old. So it's not designed by a group of strategists or consultants sitting around a boardroom table. There's a lot of depth and wisdom to the Enneagram. I studied with Don Reeser and Ross Hudson in New York, so I do align to their work on the Enneagram. There's lots of work out there, and I do enjoy many of the other authors. The reason I'm steering you to their website in New York is that they've got a free Enneagram type indicator. It's not an assessment. There are 9 personality types, and we are each born one of the 9. So our brains are hardwired. I did see earlier on that Robin Cackett is on the call. She's got twins. I've got many mates with twins, some with triplets actually, and they come out the mum's tummy a different personality type, so they can be born seconds apart. and their hardwiring, their perspective, their frame, their lens on the world is quite different. So Enya comes from the word 9, gram means drawing, and it's a 9-pointed drawing, a circle with a triad and a triangle, and you'll see there's lots of movement in this. So although you're born one of the 9, you will access the other 8, but this will help you self-coach, be more self-compassionate, to know yourself, and in the workplace, just using good old Jim Collins's old terminology, we want the right people sitting in the right seats on the right bus, facing the right direction. So I've worked with many teams, as has Celynn, where we behaviorally are looking for a high-performing team who are operating in a kind of a good space, but not in that great space. And that does just sometimes take aligning the personality to the role that they're playing and making sure that the right people are working together. There are some teams with bright, brilliant people, but they all have a similar personality style, because we often recruit people who are very similar to ourselves. We want diversity in the workplace, and that's not age, gender, race, or culture. That is personality. So go onto the website, and you can do a free RETI, that's Riso Hudson Enneagram Type Indicator. Discover the type that you're born. We are passionate about this as the B in the FAB acronym for behavior, because this is the starting point. If you want to develop your emotional quotient, you need to know yourself. You need to be self-aware. How do you self-regulate? How do you self-motivate? How do you understand and empathize with the other 8 styles? How do you communicate differently with each of them? Those are the 5 pillars of EQ, and I would strongly recommend, if there's one action you take after tonight, and it's the only action, sorry, Celynn, they're going to kick the sugar habit. Yes, I know, but they're also going to go into the RETI and do that on the Enneagram Institute website. So please go and do that. And once you've done that, you can also sign up for a free daily Enya thought. So I must say, this is something that I do read 365 days of the year. I don't get any of my emails coming to my cell phone, but when I'm away, I've got my iPad with me, and this is a provocative question that will be asked of you, pertinent to the type that you were born. So Celynn and I happen to be the same type, and there's many a day where we're not working together, where we will phone each other or WhatsApp and say, oh my goodness gracious, did you read the Enya thought of the day? So it's free. It's something that will really enhance your ability to really just ask yourself the right questions, and to get a bit of distance and a bit of perspective on yourself. And as the years tick by, where you really want to maybe start a new chapter in your life or do things differently, you may want to be thinking about the authentic you and how you can map that out for yourself and the habits that work for you. So have a look at that. We were graciously granted, apparently the first book in the world to have the quest launched in a book. So that's in the behave section of the book, under the know yourself section, and you can go use our book, and that's quite a nice way to start. We've got obviously small sections on each of the 9 types, and then a so what now what as each of the sections end as to what you can do with the Enneagram. So this is a simple step, but with powerful results, and nearly 19 years later, I'm still looking in the mirror, trying to understand in what way I can further play to my strengths. So that's the 10th tip. We now have a look at what do each of us do as a call to action. And even as the Rec and Fab girls, we look at what are we doing on a daily or weekly basis? What new techniques are we incorporating and integrating into our work lives? So here's a pictorial summary of what we've gone through. So the sleep, the connect and collaborate, your business mentor, your personal mentor, the other dimensions in your personal life, snacking for stamina, which was life-changing for me as well, I have to say. Kicking that sugar habit, I found that when I don't have even sweeteners in my coffee now, I don't crave sugar. And looking at how things do start with you in terms of knowing yourself, networking, making that time, using your initiative to get to see different people in different industries, picking your battles, and then activates for at least, well, we actually say 5 minutes to the hour. So if you set your smartphone at 5 to 10, 5 to 11, 5 to 12, you integrate that into your day, 5 minutes of every hour, you'll find that actually your brain will work better during the day. So what are you going to choose? So we come to a time now where you can choose what you're going to do after the session. We have got these free handouts for you, which you can click onto your control panel. It says they're handouts 105. So select that and then download that. And we give you a few suggestions. They're quite fun, and the fuel, they activate the behave, what you could be doing Saturday to Friday. And we specifically adhere, and we subscribe is a better word, to the tiny habits philosophy. Professor B.J. Fogg from Stanford has come up with a philosophy called tiny habits. So please don't try and do too many things. Rather choose one tiny habit, embed it, engage with it until it becomes a good habit and it's second nature to you. So out of the 10 that we took you through, select one of the 10. So look at those pictures, and then also use that handout to maybe subscribe to what you want to do. So we've got a few slides bouncing up here, which is just fun. Those are, thank you, Celynn, the 10 pictures that will ignite your thinking, and a summary for you. And as Celynn said, yes, I'm going to choose the best points, or let me say that in a different way, the best behaviors that you're going to choose. So select one thing, and if you can post that under questions, that'll be really good, and we will comment on those and just hear what you have to say. In this section of the webinar, we have found it to be really useful to be specific, to select a tiny habit out of these 10 stress busters. And when we read that in the control panel, we've found that we easily cross-fertilize ideas between attendees. So you might want to steal someone else's habit, which is a great way to select something that might work for you. And we'll just comment on those. So this is the time now to kind of helicopter up, think about these 10 stress-busting ideas, and click on that little arrow to the left of the word question and type in a simple behavior, a tiny habit that you can take out of investing this time with us in our chat tonight. What are you going to do differently tonight as a result of the FAB webinar? Celynn, do you want to add anything to that call to action?
I think in my experience of being a dietitian and consulting with people, especially around food, is that we set ourselves up for failure when we choose too many things. So I often see people want to cut out a food group, drink more water, drink less wine, and cut out chocolates. And it's just too much. So certainly it's not just the way that we eat, it's the way that we move, the way that we manage stress. And I think the key really is in just doing one or two simple, small things. And one is fine. Because when that one thing becomes a ritual and part of your daily routine, your life, when you're doing it without thinking, then you can move on to the next thing. So even though we've shared 10 tips with various tips within those concepts, we'd really like to know what is something that's maybe struck a chord with you, that you feel motivated to change, that you have the ability to change, and that you could act on pretty soon. So we see that the one comment that's been shared is that somebody's going to definitely be activating more. I see that somebody else is going to look for a mentor. So that's absolutely great. If we can help you with that, just contact us. Oh, brilliant. Somebody's going to be jumping on their rebounder. I've actually always wanted, I think we need a rebounder for the FAB office. It's a mini trampoline, and that bounce back action is incredibly good for your lymph system. So a really good way to activate. So Jane, let us know how that rebounding goes. Somebody's definitely going to prioritize sleep and consider taking power naps. That's brilliant. I can't.
Maybe I'll come in there, Denise. I know you. It's lovely that you tuned in. Thank you. The power naps, I don't know what made me think about it now, but I was doing a talk in Cape Town for you, Celynn. I don't think I told you this. And I had a long time at the airport at the Johannesburg or Tambo. Flight delays. I got there exactly an hour before the session, and I wanted to be there earlier. But I decided to take a 12-minute power nap in my car before I went into the session.
Look at you.
And yeah, exactly. So power naps don't have to be on your bed and on the weekends. They can literally be in your car. If you've got the privacy of your own office, close the door. Google, of course, have their fantastic Google power napping sleep pods, which is great. I'm hoping South African organizations catch a wake up, because having a simple 20 minutes in that wildebeest nod time of the day, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you will be much more productive after that. So thank you, Denise.
And I see, Claire, you're quite right. It's great to want to power nap, but just giving yourself permission to rest. So I find that I don't always drop into sleep like Joni does, but just taking 8 or 10 minutes and allowing myself to relax. I move from my scalp to my toes very slowly, progressively relaxing each muscle. It feels like I've had a sugar-free Red Bull, and I haven't.
I'll just build on that. I read a white paper this weekend on microbursts, and one of the parts of the research that came out of that is that if you can't power nap at work, you could actually just take time out to phone a loved one. So someone who's really special to you and that you connect really well with. And in fact, the microburst of energy lasts for up to an hour after that quick telephone call. So they measured that, and it was quite tangible research. So if you're not power napping, maybe Claire's point around just taking some time out, a call to a loved one, and I think companies should be allowing a few funny YouTube videos or just also having a good laugh with a colleague will elevate your energy as well.
And Marlette, thanks for joining us. I think I'm delighted that you're going to be reading labels and just to check out the sugar. I know that was something that you found quite interesting. A lot of us are going to be activating. Mona and Viz, if I am correct, you're going to be walking a lot up Kilimanjaro. And we've been watching you and Anne training up the West Cliff stairs, or watching you virtually. Perhaps we should join you sometime. So thank you for
this. Maybe, sorry, Celynn, on that point of sleep more, we could make that a tinier habit. I mean, what do you mean by sleep more? Is it go to bed half an hour earlier? What does that mean specifically for you? So we find that we will definitely integrate these behavior shifts if we make them smart. So make them simple, measurable, attainable, realistic, and put a time frame to it. So if you normally go to bed at 10 o'clock at night and you now start getting ready for bed at 9 with that digital detox, so don't look at any screens from 9 to 10, but you actually get ready at 9, you in bed and ready to really mindfully settle the day, and you switch your light off at 9:30, then that's sleeping more, an extra half an hour. So try and visualize where in your day you're going to do any of these behaviors and make it quite measurable until it just becomes, as Celynn said earlier, second nature and a beautiful ritual in your life.
Thank you. And Raymond, great that you're going to be eating less donuts. That'll definitely serve you well. So thank you for those suggestions. Be sure now to write it down on the action sheet. There's something very powerful about writing down your commitment. So you can download that. It's on the right-hand side on the control panel. Print it out and just start by taking a pen and paper, writing down, activate, walking more steps, trying a power nap, reading food labels, and that'll get you started on your new tiny habit that will become one of your important tools in your toolkit to managing stress and having a healthier career. So where to from now? Because our time is up, but we want to see you again. So if you want to find out what my Yorkie is named after my favorite bubbly, and Click or hangs out with Sammy, who's Joni's Yorkie in the FAB office. And if you want to find out what Click or has in common with your health and wealth plan, and you need to have a wealth and a health plan, be sure to join us again. We're having a second webinar that is not a repeat of this one. It's completely new. It's going to share 6 strategies that can help you not transact your health while you're building wealth. When is that happening? It's happening in about a week and a half, so the day before the public holiday. It's going to take place on the 26th. We're experimenting with this. So we're going to have this webinar in the morning at 8 a.m. We're going to give it a try. We'd love your feedback. So if you can't join us because of the time, let us know. If you think it's a great time, let us know. The feedback we get is different. So some people like the end of the day. Some people find if it's at the start of the day, they're more likely to make it. So be sure to share this. We'd love colleagues, friends, families, neighbors, anybody who could do with more energy, who could do with understanding how to build their health while they're building wealth, to please join us and to register for that. We'll send through the registration link tomorrow when we send a thank you email. And be sure that you are receiving our Friday foodie recipes. We're getting great feedback on that. The Friday foodie recipes are fab because Joni had the great idea that they should only have 5 ingredients because she doesn't like to spend time in the kitchen.
No, I'm useless in the kitchen, let's be honest.
And in fact, it works. So all the fab recipes are 5 ingredients or less, and they're meant to be healthy and balanced but not take a lot of time. And those are sent out every Friday. If you're not getting them, you can go to our website, which is resilientenergycenter.com. Just note that Resilient Energy Center is spelled the American way because that's the domain that we were able to get. And you can sign up there. On the right-hand side, you can join the FAB family, and then you'll hear from us. And so, ladies and gentlemen, and Yorkies, and we also had Lola. You might have spotted her joining us and saying hello to Joni. Thank you for spending the time with us. Thank you for sharing what you're going to do more of. And we'd love to see you at our next webinar or at any of the others that will follow. And that's thank you from me. Joni, any final notes?
Absolutely, thank you. And if you've implemented something that's really worked for you with a twist or just want to share with us, we love feedback. Breakfast of Champions, we know, but it's really heartwarming to hear what people do and how you personalize it. So please, we're an email away, or just connect with us on one of the mediums. So we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, and obviously if you go to the website, you'll see our emails as well. So thank you, Celynn. This was fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Go have a great dinner and activate.